Hey all, this is Vincent Zeng, the Wandering Warrior, 流浪勇士. Here in the old days, on the western plain, the coastal plain, the Pingpu, it was once a vast tropical grassland, dotted with forests and rivers, and at one point, massive herds of Sika deer roamed this plain. And of course, the Pingpu Zhu, or the various tribes of coastal plains aborigines, hunted and lived off of them. But something would happen beyond the shores and right at the coast of Taiwan that would change that forever. And nowhere is that better captured than the old sleepy town of Lukang, Deerport. Check it out.
Everyone wanted to trade with China. Back then, made in China meant great silks and other products. Indians, Malay, Japanese, Portuguese, Dutch, and so on fought to get a place at the table. The Ming Dynasty was, however, relatively prohibitive with maritime trade, and so these merchants, smugglers, and pirates often rendezvous in Taiwan, close to the ports of Hokkien, but not in the Chinese Empire. That may have pushed pirates to build bases on the coasts, but throughout the 1500s, these were trade posts and a means to circumvent Ming policies, not necessarily permanent colonization. However, at the same time, with the militarized state of Japan, the demand for war materials was high as well. Deerskins were prized as a component of the samurai armor. Just as North America and Siberia were subject to the fur trades of beaver pelts, buckskins, seals, and sables, East Asia had its fur trade. Otter pelts and Sika deer were the targets here on Taiwan. With the arrival of the Dutch and Yan Siqi, the pirate king, thousands of Han immigrants came here for opportunities, and by 1636, the Sika deer herds near Tainan were decimated, and many hunters moved north. But as they did so, they met stiff resistance from the farmlands and their Han allies. 6 years later, in 1642, the Dutch finally subdued them after killing many. While the Aboriginal hunting methods prized the use of archery or javelins in small bands or communal hunts, skills useful for both getting the food and for traditional warfare, the Han arrivals saw the deer trade purely in economic terms. Using pit traps and mass groups, they killed off the deer populations far more efficiently, profiting off of the deer skin trade as well as the sale of meat, organs, and antlers. The Sika deer were hunted nearly to extinction. With the extirpation of Sika deer, the indigenous traditional lifestyle of hunting and small-scale farming had to change. The deer were literally getting killed off, and if you relied on them, you better adapt. Add to that the growing numbers and power of Hokkien immigrants and the increasing intermixing, and it's easy to see why many coastal plains aborigines, called Pingpuzu in Mandarin, the indigenous people of the plains, began to either integrate and assimilate, not only linguistically but economically and culturally as well, or pack up and leave. One migration saw many families, muskets in hand, march all the way east to Yilan. Plus, the newcomers from Hokkien were a violent bunch as well. Maybe not the kind of ambushes and headhunting kind of violence, but masses of armed men slaughtering one another over land kind of violence. In this environment of ethnic tension, land grabbing, and combat, it was often best to band together for strength and protection. Where every village is a small polity, smaller states get eaten. Tropical wooded grasslands were converted to farmlands to feed the voracious demand for rice, sugar, and other crops back in China, and the era of the Formosan Sika deer was ended. During the Qing Dynasty, Lukang's harbor and its proximity to Hokkien, Fujian province, made it prosperous. During its golden age from 1785 to 1845, Lukang was Taiwan's second largest city after Tainan, the local capital. So important was Lukang that locals referred to southern Taiwan as Gang and northern Taiwan as Gang. With the deerskin trade ended, the rice trade boomed. Rice profits brought great wealth to the port and its powerful clans. The couple hundred temples, old mansions, nostalgic alleyways, and traditional crafts are a testament to this former glory. However, the port began to naturally fill with silt, perhaps exacerbated by the intensive farming, and additionally the government of Lukang declined being part of the railroad system and so they weren't blessed by the same progress and prosperity seen elsewhere. Yet here was a hidden blessing, as a lot of the old flavor of Lukang was preserved instead of demolished for high-rises and factories. We get a glimpse of Taiwanese Minnan culture of the coast and a thread of connection to the old days of Hokkien desperados, the deerskin trade, and a vignette of Taiwan's story. And its name has stayed pretty consistent too. Lukang in Taiwanese Minnan, being shortened to and Japanicized into Roko, which is Lukang in Mandarin. Oh, and as for the deer, they still exist, although not locally. But thanks to conservation efforts, Sika deer were reintroduced to Hengshun National Park and today number in the thousands. It's a far cry from the old days, but maybe we'll find a way towards a healthy ecological compromise someday in the future.
And that is a snapshot of Lukang's story. The story of deer port and of deer, of rice, and immigration. But while Lukang itself was a prosperous place at one point, just inland, where all that deer and rice was coming from, was conflict, massacre, war, and a place called Bamboo City. But that's a story for another time. In any case, thank you so much for joining me on my journey. I salute yours. Peace.